Hi, everybody. My name's Ian Wright, founder and CEO of the Disruptive Innovators Network, and I'm delighted to be here today with Rob Rowlands from Rob Rowlands Research, the Professor of Curiosity. Hi, Rob. How are you doing?
Hi Ian, I'm good. Are you?
Yeah, I'm very well and very excited about this latest project, which is DIN's AI Pulse, some longitudinal research for us to understand how the social housing sector is designing and rolling out artificial intelligence across the sector. And obviously, you're going to be leading on this research. So I just wondered if you can sort of explain a little bit more about what the Pulse survey is going to do, what you're looking to achieve with it, and how people can get involved.
Okay, well, thanks, Ian. We can't escape AI today. It's flavour of the month for everybody, and I'm sure anybody watching this right now, will recognise it from their own, their own business, from their own organisations about the way in which AI is being talked about and possibly being used. The problem is, in housing, we've got a lot of talk about it, but we haven't got enough information about exactly where it is we are. We've had a number of small scale and larger scale surveys that were published last year, but they really just give us a veneer about, are you doing AI? Yes, maybe. Beyond that, there's a whole range of questions, and I think this is where we've decided that we're going to set our stall out and actually ask those questions.
Yeah, and I think it's really important for a sector which is, if people accept the gravity of what AI is going to do, I mean, it's probably going to be bigger than the internet in a lot of things, how it's going to change people's work. I think, I'm sort of interested from a DIN member perspective, the opportunities, but also the risks as the businesses see them.
Yeah.
And yes, we'll capture some great good practice and great content about how people are actually using AI to solve tenants and residents' problems. But there's a wider debate, I suppose, society-wise, in terms of, how do we manage the governance of AI? Do we really understand how and why we're actually using this? And that's what I'm hoping that through your research, that we'll get lots of organisations wanting to contribute to that debate and discussion.
I think you're right, and this is the detail that we want to draw out from this research is actually the real life of what is going on around AI. We see, for example, a lot of talk about co-pilot pilots. We want to understand, well, what exactly does that mean for housing associations? How's this landing at an executive level? What are their intentions for these kind of pieces of technology? And then how's that landing? When we move further down the business, down to the coal face, to the people who are implementing things, but equally, what's the impact on customers from using these things? We're not going to be able to address all of this through this one piece of work because we're lifting the bonnet on this engine that's being built. We're trying to find out exactly what the engine looks like first. So this is the first set of questions. From those set of questions, and I'm hoping that we're going to find out, some more questions to ask and get into the nitty gritty of some of this thing. But at the same time, I think, Ian, this is about trying to get away from this binary AI is good or AI is bad. And it's about putting some flesh on the bones. It's giving some real detail around which we can start to have sort of mature and productive discussions about how do we move this forward. Like you said, what guardrails do we need to put in place? What might those guardrails look like? What are people doing in terms of those guardrails? And can we borrow from each other rather than trying to reinvent the wheel, each single time? How do we get to a point where we can be providing, effective support, training, for staff as jobs start to evolve? They may change, but equally, how much is AI being able to get people to get down those lists of jobs that they need to be doing that frankly are the types of things that don't float people's boat. They get left to the last minute. They're pushed further down. How does AI augment what they're doing so that we can actually deliver a better service?
So, in terms of the research, it's going to run throughout from the spring right the way to the end of this year. Could you sort of explain a little bit more about the research process and how people can get involved?
Yeah, I can. We've got two parts to this research. There are two pulse surveys which are going to be, anybody can reply to these. That's going to go out. The first one is going to go live on the 16th of March, and it will be available for a 2 week period. So we're going to encourage as many people as possible to reply to that. DIN members and non-DIN members. We'd like to hear from everybody, whether you're a chief executive or you're just a housing officer or a plumber or an electrician who works for a housing association. We want to find out about your experiences of AI because this is building up that picture. That's going to go, as I said, in March. We're going to have the first one on the 16th of March. The second one is going to come out late September, and we're finalising the dates for those. So we get 2 pulse points. And the idea of having this pulse is that this year and in subsequent years, we're going to see how that changes over time. We're going to see how the different opinions, different experiences move as AI starts to become used more. It's embedded, and our maturity around AI grows. The second part of the project is what we call a Delphi panel. So if there are people who aren't familiar with Delphi panels, it comes from the ancient Greek. Delphi is where the oracle lived, and I've got 13 oracles on my panel. They never meet each other. This is the beauty of the Delphi panel. They don't meet each other. They don't know who's on the panel, and you won't know who's on the panel until we've finalized all the results. But what that does is enable me to ask them a whole range of questions and avoid the group think around getting everybody into one room. So they give me their thoughts, their opinions. I play it back to them twice so they can then adjust what they say, and we get a consensus view which identifies commonalities and divergences. And I think this is where we need to get to with this work. It builds on that pulse. It gives us that rich picture, and it starts to get us under the bonnet, understanding what the different engines are that we're dealing with.
That sounds brilliant, Rob. I do hope we can get lots of DIN members and, as you say, the wider housing sector involved in this. So, very much looking forward to the results of the surveys and, hopefully shining a light on AI in the social housing sector.
Me too, Ian, and I think it's the so whats that come from this are going to be fantastic, but it's where we're going to have so much fun in working out, how we can take this forward a lot better.